and we are on our way of implementing that. We have the cannabis referral coming up on Tuesday to open up additional retail and delivery spaces. And in addition, we have medical parts that have been also open. So my view on the cannabis issue is that this is an issue of state law. State law requires that we can place reasonable restrictions on it, but we cannot place restrictions that are so onerous as to amount to a prevention. Earlier parts of the law were highly restrictive, and probably the only place you could legally dispense was standing on a rock out on the bay, over on the corner. So those have been, that has been addressed, that has been moved, that's been opened up, and I think that we're moving in the right direction. And that direction is that it is state law, we need to honor that, we are allowed to do reasonable restrictions on that, we cannot place restrictions that would prevent it from happening within the city limits.
So medicinal cannabis was legalized in California, what, 1996? And adult use, I think 2/3 of Alameda voters back in 2016 agreed with the proposition that adult use should be permitted also. And if you ever knock on doors and walk precincts on a Friday night, you'll know that adult use is already there in Alameda. I think this is one of the things that, you know, we've had to move our professional staff as a policy board on the council. You know, I think the mayor has been a strong leader in this. Councilmember Vela, myself, we tried to push for this, with also protecting. So I voted
for the current situation that we have with our proposal, where we have 2 dispensaries. I'd like to see that go to 4, because we are a city that by population could afford 5, as far as our population. I think we should get into manufacturing, and we have allowed for permits on that, but nobody has applied for that because the tax situation is unsettled. I think we should also allow adult use dispensaries. We're having an agenda item next week, as Robert said, to talk about delivery options. I think we need to have delivery options because these people are coming into Alameda from out of Alameda, and we should be able to make money off of that, or at least know who's doing it so they can register. I agree with the buffer zone around schools. There's been a 1,000-foot buffer zone around schools. We've kind of compacted that with 600 around other sensitive uses because that's what the state allowed. So as far as specificity, you know what I voted for. I think we need to continue moving forward and provide not only compassionate use for patients who need it, but allow adult use and support the 2/3 of Alamedas who voted for it.
Thank goodness I'm not that loud. So I'll take a step back. Right as cannabis was heading towards legalization, the state law was changed that basically said cities need to pass some regulations, or state regulations will be the law of the day. A very rushed staff report was brought to the planning board. We had to decide tonight so we could get something to the council so they could pass it in time to get our laws on the books before the state law took effect. The recommendation was, and we approved it, to ban everything at that time, simply because we didn't have the time to actually have a really nuanced conversation. Staff had done no work, etc. My solution, which I asked my colleagues to support me on, and which they did, was to pass the ban, but also send a message to the city council at that time that it was time to start this conversation, so that we were not behind the 8 ball, so that from the manufacturing research and the business end of this, we could actually possibly be a community that was reaping benefits and out ahead of other communities. Councilmember Odie was very supportive of that, but unfortunately there were not any other votes. The other 4 people on the council said no, and it sat for a few years. And then again, we ended up with a very rushed process when it finally did come back, which cut a lot of people out. The school community was not included in that conversation. So, I think we're in a very constrained place right now. I think we do need to. My understanding of this issue is evolving. I am understanding that medical only places are just not going to survive. That nobody can open one because adult use is so prevalent. People are just not even getting medical cards anymore. You might as well just go to a place where you can buy without one. So we do need to do that. Whether it's 3 or 4, I definitely agree that we need to be slow and make sure we're not overpopulating. But right now, I think we're at the very slow end.
Back in 1980, I remember I was 18 years old, moved to college, starting freshman year in college, and I came from a very conservative family background, Roman Catholic, immigrant from the Philippines. So I came home with a joint. My sister saw it, immediately grabbed it from me and said, "You cannot do this. You will be addicted for life." Flash it down the toilet. That's my family background. I mean, cannabis, I've never tried it in my life. I don't think I ever will. I voted no in Prop 64 when it came up. I mean, we talked about it. Wife and I were on board, said, "No way, Jose. Recreational cannabis. I'm having a problem with medical cannabis." But my 2 kids said, "Dad, they voted yes." So there's that gap. Yes, I will never try cannabis in the near or foreseeable future. But guys, it's the law. California is legal. Recreational cannabis is legal. As your council member, as your policy maker, we got to abide by the law. And 70% of you said yes to recreational cannabis. I come from a healthcare background, so I got to change with time. And if that's what the citizens want, then we need to regulate it. Either 1,000 feet, 500 feet, 2 dispensaries in a cultivation and grow, or is it 4? My concern is make sure that the products that we are going to be eventually selling are safe. It's research, it's regulated, and it's taxed. But yeah, it's the law. I will abide by it, and I don't want to see big corporation coming in and monopolizing it. I want to encourage more local business owners, maybe expand it to 2, 3, or even 4.
Like many of, before I begin, let me just take 10 seconds to say, at the outset of this evening, I believe I might have mistakenly said that I live in Walnut Creek. To all of you, I work in Walnut Creek and live in Alameda. To the television, I work in Walnut Creek and I live in Alameda. 10 seconds. Like many of you, I am concerned about, the effects of stimulants like marijuana or even alcohol on our minds. But I think when it comes to marijuana, especially medical marijuana, the science is really in. And the science demonstrates that there is medicinal benefits. There are values to having medical marijuana and to having that kind of establishment, even in Alameda. Now, I will have a kind of unique take to this whole discussion because there is actually a very strong prospect that medical marijuana or medical marijuana dispensary facility will open 2 doors from my house. So my house, as you know, is on, it's at the farmer's market, so I'm two houses from the intersection of Haight and Webster. So it's all completely possible that the store on the corner will become a medical marijuana site. So as a council member, while I could not officially take part in the matter, should it come to pass, that one in particular, as a resident of Alameda, I can be involved, and you know darn well that I'm going to make sure that they are good neighbors, not just in my neighborhood because so much is at stake for me, but in any neighborhood in Alameda. My understanding of our ordinance is that it seemed to be fairly strong. I believe some of the medical marijuana outlets interested in Alameda would like to see it weakened. I'm not ready yet to weaken the law, but I do believe that the science is in, that there is a benefit to having it And we need to make sure that we have good laws to make them good neighbors.
Mr. Odie, get us started on the next to last question, please. And here is the question. What do you see